Hi, Lewis, as Sophie would say, which is a cross between listeners and viewers. We love making up new words here on Dear Rach Soph. I am Rachel Johns, and this is a new episode. And I'm delighted to be here with my good friend Sophie Green. How are you today, Sophie?
I'm very well, thank you, Rachel. I'm very happy to see you. We've had a little break in recording. We did bank a lot of episodes,
Yes.
but we took a break because we both have books to write. And if you're watching this, you will see that I have wet hair. Now, the reason is
And I just have bad hair, but
that it's
anyway.
Sunday morning, actually, and I had this whole thing of going, "Oh, I'm going to be on screen, and I should tie my hair up." And then I thought, no, this is real life. I play tennis at 7 a.m. on Sunday
Oh,
mornings.
I'm so impressed.
And then I have housework to do and like grocery shopping and all those sorts of things. And then we're recording this, and I just thought, no, this is real life. My hair is wet, and it's also because I have curly hair that I don't blow dry it.
You're
So
so lucky. I mean,
people are just going to have to
hair.
watch it dry while the episode
Well,
goes
if we
on.
should do that, I mean, this is not a hair talk chat, but we should be real. If we really want to be real, I should wash my hair one day and we let it dry on air. And oh my goodness, it's not a pretty sight. I should tell you. Having hair that is not curly or not straight, but is just some weird, like, woofy thing is not fun, and you need to dry it properly or you regret it for the days. So anyway, my hair needs a wash, so it's back in a ponytail. But this is not, we're not here to talk about hair. What should
Hair
we
is important though, right? Like this
Well,
we talk about it.
it is important, and I always struggle because I'm to come up with different hairstyles for my characters. Oh, and I should say that while we're recording this, although it's probably going to be a while until it comes out, your new book is coming out this week,
It is.
and it is about hair.
That's true. Yeah, that's an unconscious segue for us. Lessons in
I
Love
know.
Countryside Salon is set in a hairdressing salon in Terrigal on the central coast of New South Wales.
You couldn't
And
have planned that better.
that's
Honestly,
true.
folks, that was
That was
a
really it's only come about because I have wet hair. Before we move on, though, I would like to call attention to the top you are wearing. So
Oh,
anyone who's listening is going to miss out on the
maybe
splendor.
we should take a photo. Hang on. I'll take
Rachel,
a
you can take a
screenshot
picture.
now. Ready? So everyone can. You ready, Soph?
I am ready.
There we go. So we can talk about that if need be.
So if you were listening to that, you heard a pause because I'm not going to edit that out. And that was Rachel taking a screenshot of her Diet Coke top. Now, when I say this is a Diet Coke top, it has actual
I'm doing a model and it's like,
embellishments to look at the bubbles, and Rachel's standing up. So maybe if you're listening, go to the video. It's going to be on YouTube. It's on Substack. You can see her wearing it. It's extraordinary.
it is very extra. That's the word I would say. And I'm sitting sideways for those who are watching now. So for those who are not watching, it is a sparkly Diet Coke bottle on a bright pink neon jumper, and coming out of the Diet Coke top of the bottle is bubbles, but they are literally very extra beads.
So
And
extra.
I don't wear this jumper much because I'm too terrified that I'll spill something on it and I'll need to give it a proper clean, or that I'll get sweaty and I have to wash it. So it's just too hard. I'm scared of washing it.
It's look, partly what fascinates me about things like this is the whoever made it,
Mm.
how did they come up with that idea?
Well,
Obviously, a Diet Coke fan, right?
yeah, and although I have to look where I got it, I did get it online. I saw it somewhere. It wasn't cheap. It was someone who comes up with they've got tennis. They had a tennis type thing at the time. I'll have to check. I can't
I
see
can't
it,
read the tag from here.
I
Rachel's
can't read the
actually got the
label.
tag up next to the camera, but
But they they have like a whole load of different types of, and also I think like champagne. I have to have a look and go back because it's been a couple of years since I bought it. But it's true, people are very creative, right?
it's amazing. The whole thing's amazing.
Yeah.
But yes, we will move on because we have a guest coming and we're going
Yes,
to run out of
you
time
don't
for
want to leave
doing
her
it. So now,
waiting.
how is your writing going?
Um, I think good. I am a bit just feeling a little bit like I've got three projects now that
Yeah.
I'm writing at the same time, because I'm writing my next year's single novel, single as
Mm.
in solo, not co-written. And I wanted to get a good start on that, and I've written about 30,000 words before I had to dive into my co-written novel again. But
Which is
I
with
just,
Mercedes Mercier,
yes.
and it is
So it's called The Number One Insta Detective Agency. It's the first book in the series. And Mercedes, my co-writer, was finishing edits and stuff. And before that, I was deep in edits. So we pushed the book back a little bit so we could focus. But now that time has come. And so we had a Zoom on Friday night to try and refresh our memory. Because when we're recording this, it's the end of July. Um, Mercedes and I came up with this idea in January, and we sold the book pretty quickly, or the first two books in the series, on a what would you call it? Proposal.
proposal. It's like
Yeah.
sample chapter, probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, with sample chapters. And then we basically have had too many other things on our plate to deal with that. So now we're back, and we did a lot of chatting about the story, obviously, when we were first coming up with the idea and brainstorming those chapters and everything. But since then, as happens, we've had more time to think and let it simmer, and certain things we want to change and that. So we had a big Zoom on Friday night, and yeah, we're going to get back to writing soon. But I've got a very big month ahead because it's almost August.
Mhm.
I'm going to the Kimberley Writers Festival this week, uh, first weekend in August.
And I'm just going to pause there and say you have a new website which has all your events listed on it. So if anyone would like to see where you're going to be, they can go there.
Yes, thank you. Shout out to Annie Buckle-Nall, who did our website, my website. I'm just saying ours now, we're just
She did mine too. I think that's
yeah,
probably why
she
your
did.
brain
So
went there.
maybe
Yeah.
she did our websites. I should have said
Yeah.
websites rather than anyway. And then I'm home for a week a bit, and then I'm going to the Romance Writers New Zealand conference to speak.
Mhm.
And then I'm not coming home between. I'm going to Tasmania for the Romance Writers of Australia conference. So I'm away that time for almost 2 weeks. And I don't know about you, but I know that I don't get writing done really when I'm doing all
The
this
rhythms are
stuff
all,
and
I
I'm
think it's
away.
because the rhythms are different. It's not so much about time, although that is a factor. It's actually that I think it's hard to be in your writing rhythm, even if your writing rhythm is not necessarily fixed. It's just
Yeah,
that
yeah.
there's
But
so much
probably
else
it's
going
actually
on.
worse for me now because my writing rhythm is fixed. Like
Right.
years ago when I was aspiring and writing in the gaps and all that sort of stuff, um, I could write more anywhere at any time. And I know that deep down I can do that, but I'm just so used to writing here in my lovely office.
Yeah.
And also, when I'm on a plane, I want to relax. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
you work hard, Rach. I
And you
want
do need to
sometimes
relax
to,
because
yeah.
the third
So,
thing you are writing is Meanwhile Mount Maryglen, which is your
yes.
serialized
So I
uh,
have to keep that going, that
story.
meanwhile I might mail again, because that's a chapter a week. So there is a little bit of pressure for that because I've committed to one chapter a week. And so yeah. So I'm just feeling a little bit all over the place. I don't know. And I've got three stories in my head. So when you
Yeah.
have like a shower or you're out walking or whatever
Yeah.
and your story comes to you,
Yeah.
like I've got, oh, which story is this today? Oh, that's that one. Who is so
Yeah, but I'd also like to point out that for a lot of people who might be wanting to get into writing or they are writing, and you are very well established. You have over 20 books published. You're one of the best-selling Australian fiction writers at the moment. The hustle is real for you. Now, this is
Mm.
you doing three projects at once. There's no part of you that's like, oh, well, I can just sit back and relax.
Well,
You're
I
still
should
telling
have.
stories. But
That's because I'm
it's also
silly.
the creative momentum is you have these ideas and you're doing something with them. It's not as if you're sitting and resting on laurels at
Yeah.
all. It's actually that you keep creating. And I think that's probably where I was going
Mm.
with that is
And
that
in some ways, the good thing about it is if I kind of am stuck or I don't feel like, writing on one project or whatever, instead of just staring into thin air or waiting, I can have a play with something else.
yeah,
Mm.
and
And
that's
what
always
about you, Soph? I know Alice almost here, but she can wait a few more moments.
I have
How's your pre-publicity week,
well
pre-post release week? Oh, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Pre-release week been?
so the reality of book publishing these days, in fact, most cultural output is that there isn't a lot to be done with traditional media, and this is a
Mm.
reality
Yep.
that's been happening for a while, getting more and more the case that
Yeah.
traditional media just aren't interested in covering authors or books. Certainly, some podcasts will. There are some radio stations that will, and I thank very much the radio stations who keep having me back. And
Yeah,
there are
same.
some
I've got a few radio stations that are really very like what's the word? I don't know. They're very
They're pro books, so they've got set up,
pro
and
books.
I think it comes to comes down to the presenters in
Yeah,
particular programs who are interested in it. So, um, but yeah, there's not a huge amount, particularly that can be organized ahead. And so I know from my day job as a publisher that the publicists are often waiting for confirmations right up until the day of, or like a best case scenario the day before, and it's just really hard to come by them. So it's a challenge because obviously we would like people to know about books. That's why you and I are doing those new releases
yeah.
episodes, so we can tell
Can I
people.
just butt in for 1 second? I want to hear the rest of what you're saying, but I know I'll forget. This is to do with the publicists there. I hear a lot of newly published authors really think their publicists aren't doing anything or the publishing house are not doing anything, and it's because they don't see results.
Knows. They don't see
But
the
I
knows as
think,
well.
yeah, behind the scenes, there's a lot more going on, isn't there? Than
There is, and I've often argued that publishers should tell authors what they've tried for and couldn't get.
mm,
But I think for administrative reasons that would be tricky, but they do
yeah,
try for a lot, and they pitch, and what they have to do is rely on a response from a producer at the
mm,
other end or a festival director. A lot of
yeah,
authors are frustrated they don't get into festivals. Well, those books are pitched, but the festival directors have particular ideas of what they want in that festival, and it could be that you have the hot new crime novel, but maybe they've decided they've done enough
they're
crime.
done with crime.
They're doing history, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
that sort of thing can happen. But our guest is in the waiting room. I will say quickly that I have been writing my next year's novel, and I did
Good.
running documents, and so I do my like initial character frameworks, and then I do a further document to map their arc. And once I finished making all the notes in there, I realized it was like 3,000 words long. I thought,
Wow.
kind of written a bit of that, and then I did start writing it properly. So there's a lot of, for me, there's a lot of preparation that goes into it. Sometimes I will go back and draw on that information. Often I don't. Often I don't
Yeah,
look
yeah.
at those documents unless I'm in a pickle with a storyline
Mm.
and I need to sort something out. But that's
Can
me.
I just say one more thing? Sorry,
Sure.
we'll have to wait a few more seconds because what you said there was sometimes you don't go back and look at the document and it's kind
Hmm.
of just there. And it's just reminded me of something. So I taught a writing class yesterday with Writing WA on it was called Chemistry, Conflict and Emotion in Romantic Fiction.
Mhm.
Um, but I think chemistry, conflict, and emotion, as I said, should be in every single type of book.
Mhm.
Because it's not just sexual chemistry. I mean, like there's
Yeah.
chemistry with friends, right? You meet someone and you have a connection with them, and other people you meet and you're like, oh, they're
Yeah.
okay, and other people you just instantly think, no,
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say is, as you said to them, I think what you said, it kind of like it's good advice. I said, I'm telling you all this stuff, right? Write it down, take notes, think, but then forget about it.
Mm.
Right? Don't be thinking about this when you're actually writing your book because it's sort of you just let it be in your subconscious and it's similar kind of way. And just
Yeah.
I wanted to give that tip to people like if you're doing studying writing craft, writing books, reading about structure and all that stuff, that's really, really good. And if you're a plotter, you probably think about it a little bit more. But then like kind of really don't think about it while you're writing a draft. I think, just trust that you've got that ideas that you
Yeah.
know about story. And you can fix things in the second, in the edits and stuff. But I think if you think too much about all that different stuff, all the craft stuff and how it works together and whether you've got enough chemistry or whether you've got emotion and all that, it can overwhelm you. Anyway, that's my little writing
Uh,
tip for the
and
day.
let it marinate. Trust, yes, trust,
Yeah.
as you said, trust it, trust your brain to
Yep.
actually do its job, which is to
Mm.
pull out the information when you need it. But
Yep.
moving on, we have a guest, and I'm going to read
Yay.
her bio before we bring her in. It is a guest we've had before, Rach. It is
I
Renae
know. Is this
Black.
our first return guest? I'm trying to think.
Rachel Treasure
Oh,
is our
Rachel
first.
Treasure, of course. Yep. Sorry, Rach. Love you.
But I think we love Rachel Treasure so much that she just feels like she's there all the time, so it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily feel like a return. And at one point, I was thinking maybe we should have two Rachels and a Sophie, but no, we'll stick to.
Well, maybe you could mix and match, like Dear
No,
Rach Soph.
no, I don't want to.
No,
I don't
no,
want to do away
listen,
with you.
because no, but you mix and match because it's like which Rach? Because Rach Treasure has very different, like in good way, like lots of different things to offer than I do. Anyway, let's
Okay, we'll talk about Renae Black, who is our guest.
yay!
Renae lives in Queensland with her husband and two young bookworms. By
Love it.
day, she works as a social worker within the child protection industry.
Leave my dog in. Now everyone's going to see my pants. Hang on.
By night, she escapes to the romantic
25
fictional
bucks.
realms of rural Australia that transport her back to her childhood home, a large property that bred cattle and hosted the odd ostrich sale. Her latest novel is Second Chance Station, which I have read and loved. So I'm going to put us on pause and bring Renae in, and then we'll have a chat.
Yay! Hello, Renae. Thank you so much for joining us again on Dear Rach Soph. We're stoked to have you back.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm very excited to. I'm not in pink for those watching. I feel a little bit like I missed the memo, but I do have pink earrings on, so there you go.
Oh, they're very
No,
pretty earrings.
thanks for having me.
It's great to have you back. And yes, look, Rach and I have this knack of, although we do often wear pink, we seem to regularly wear similar colors, even when they're not pink. Now, people can draw their own conclusions about that. Maybe I like to say we have ESPN.
Although I will also say, I didn't tell Sophie this, but so Renae, we had a bit of a chat in the intro about my jumper and how extra it is. But, you know, I was wearing something, I had another jumper that I was kind of thinking about wearing, and then I'm like, it looks too just round the house. And Sophie always looks so glamorous. So I was like, you know, I'll have a t-shirt that says reading a slogan or something, and she'll be in this gorgeous blouse that's like beautiful and silky and colorful. And so I was like, I need to up my game. So you're going to watch me from now on. I'm going to be hopefully upping my game. Anyway, I don't know what we're talking about now. Pink. Anyway, thank you for joining us. I just want to also say your book cover, your latest book cover is in the background there. I should have got my copy out. I cleaned my office yesterday.
And for those who aren't watching but are listening instead, the book cover is for Second Chance Station, which is Renae's latest book.
Yes, I do have my copy right here. Anyway, so it's a beautiful cover. But before we get stuck into talking to you about what we want to talk to you about today, and it's the inspiration for this book, that in all your novels, you often touch on trauma in the characters' pasts. Sorry, I'm just looking at my lipstick, which it's not really my lipstick, it's
a filter.
It's a filter.
I think it's once you started holding up the book, right?
Today it's suddenly gone really extra. Oh well, maybe it's just blending with the top or something.
Oh, Zoom.
Anyway, I look like a drag queen. Anyway, so hopefully you're just listening and you can't see this. Anyway, yeah, you often write about, so sorry, my lipstick distracted me from the important serious topics we're talking about. You often write, as a social worker yourself, you have a bit of experience in trauma, and so you often write about some serious issues in your beautiful romance novels. But before we get into talking about the inspiration for Second Chance Station and, you know, how that all interrelates, we have had you before as a guest on our show, and we talked about whether or not you should get an agent or not. And I'm just wondering if you'd give us an update and if you've thought any more about that or anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't end up getting an agent. I didn't end up inquiring or submitting anything. But I think at the time that I was speaking with you guys, I had a book sitting with my publisher at HQ on submission.
That's right.
Yeah, and this probably leads really nicely into Second Chance Station, because that book, and I know you guys have spoken a lot on your podcast around rejection, and I don't think I was rejected badly, but it was rejected for good reasons. The book that I got that email saying, hey, have you got time for a call? And your heart like it stutters, doesn't it? It goes, oh, if they want to talk to me, it's probably not wonderful news, otherwise I just get that email offer. But I spoke with my publisher, and she just said, look, this is a fantastic book. We love the characters. We love the setting. The issue is we're trying to, you're trying to create this image as a romance author. That's the path that your books so far have been on. And for a third of the book, you take your characters to Bali. And so
hey, I'm there for that.
But the rural setting was lost. So she was like, we've got, and once she said it, I just went, you're so right. Like, you are absolutely so right. And how did I never notice this? But she said to me, we've got a couple of options. We can stay with this manuscript and we can work it. Or you can send me through some ideas of other things that you've got and other things that you've been working on. And I was a little bit like mind blown, like, oh, you're totally right. But now, hadn't even given that book kind of, another second glance around, where it could go. So I said, I'll send you through some pictures. So I sent one for a manuscript that I'd already written, and a couple for, I guess, like a series from that one manuscript. I sent another idea for one that I'd written a few chapters of, was sitting in the drawer with a few chapters. And then I was scrolling through my phone. I was like, oh, just one more. So she's got 3 really clear kind of settings, storylines. And I found this storyline that I'd just jotted down around a station hand and an NRL player. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll pull something together with that and I'll send it through. Fingers crossed she picks the stuff that I've already started. Of course, no. She picked that one idea that I hadn't written anything on.
And that's this book.
And that's this
That
book.
wasn't
That long ago though, Renae.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I was thinking. It wasn't so long ago that we talked about it. We have been doing. We probably talked to you in our very first
it was the
season.
start of last year, but still, that's
pretty quick turnaround.
It ended up being a very, very quick turnaround. But it was so much fun kind of to go from that, you know, this is literally like a 1-page idea. Let's flesh this out. Let's turn it into a book. My submission date kind of got brought up because the publication date got brought up, but I was in a place where the story had been rolling, so I was able to, you know, adjust to those timeframes.
You mean it got brought forward, so you had to do it even quicker.
Yep. So yeah, and I'd almost kind of finished that first draft, but I'd allowed that gap for me to do my own editing over the story, and so that own editing was really, really quick.
Yeah. Oh,
well,
wow.
congratulations on the quick turnaround and a fantastic book. I just found it really absorbing. Your characters are really relatable, except obviously Indigo in particular has different experiences than a lot of people would have, and so does Carter for that matter. Carter is the NRL player, but yeah, they feel like real people, and they have real issues and real considerations, and yeah, it's so. Again, I think maybe that does lead us into talking about the inspiration.
Can I ask one more quick question before?
No, Rachael, you can't. No.
Oh, please. Because you just said, like, so how long did it take you to write this book then after that initial?
I ended it in mid-November. So I think I maybe started writing it about April, May.
But you have a full-time job and all this other stuff. So it was, anyway, what I was going to say is, did it feel like one of those, because it just sort of arrived to you, the idea, right? And then you wrote it. Like, I'm trying to say, and we say this is magic, not magic books. What's the word? Every now and then you get sort of like a gift book. And unfortunately, it only happens, well, for me, maybe every 5 or 6 books, if that. But like, did it feel like that? Did it feel like this was just a story that was meant to be out there, and you, as you wrote it, like, was it easy? Not easy, but like, did it come? You know what I mean?
It does now. Looking back now, I feel like, oh my goodness, like I did that so quickly. How did I do that? But I think, like, and look, Emma Mugglestone can absolutely attest to the fact that I dragged myself through the first draft, kicking and screaming the whole way, and she took me off a few ledges.
Love
so
Emma.
yeah, it didn't at the time of writing. It felt like a bit of a slog, but now looking back on how quickly everything happened, it was kind of like, wow. So I think because I had, so the pitch line that got it across the line that really grabbed them was because at the top of the pitch I had written Dirty Dancing meets McLeod's Daughters. So I kind of had that floating in my mind as I was writing it. And when you read it, kind of with that knowledge, probably you can see a lot of the similar beats to Dirty Dancing. So I think having that as a basis for the story helped move the plot along and helped me get through it. Get through it. That sounds so negative, doesn't it?
No. We totally understand. I'm sure everyone listening can understand too. Yeah. But has that changed how you think you'll write future novels? Sorry, I know I'm going off track, but it's just so fascinating.
Well, the track is wide and long range.
Do you think that because you had that such strong, image and pitch there and that line, would you do that? And I'm guessing you've probably started another book or you're in the middle of writing another book. Has it changed how you write?
A little bit. Like the book that I'm writing now, the idea came to me while I was writing Second Chance Station, and it's 2 characters from that book. And it was just screaming at me that this was a Romeo and Juliet kind of story.
Ooh.
So that's really helped dive into this next book that I'm writing.
Yeah, I think that's a good tip. Anyway.
And of course, all I can hear in my head now is nobody puts baby in a corner.
Yeah. Oh no, that's fascinating. Well, do you want to tell us a little bit about the book for those people who haven't read it yet, without spoilers, because
Yep.
and then we can talk about where you got sound like the inspiration came very quick, but yeah, we'd really love to hear about sort of how you came to write this book and why the subjects in it are important to you and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Second Chance Station really is the story of Indy. And we meet Indy as a 16-year-old. She's at a crossroads. She can either continue the life she's living. She's from the rough side of town. So if she continues down that track, she's going to end up in juvie. Or she gets offered a job as a station hand out at Windale Mountain Station by Nova, who runs the station, and it's an all-female station. That's where the McLeod's Daughters comes in.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she's got a choice, and so she makes that choice to go out to the mountain because she doesn't want to continue the life that her parents have led. So she goes out there just thinking, I'll give this a few weeks, and then if it all turns to absolute poop, I'll walk back into town. It's a pretty far way back into town, but she just thinks, I'll just walk back into town, it'll be fine. And then, first chapter we pick up with Indy, and it's 10 years later, and she's still on Windale Mountain Station, and a lot has happened to her in between that time, but she's, really kind of come into herself out there. But there's one rule on Windale Mountain Station, that is a sheep station. Yeah, and it doubles as a professional sporting camp for athletes and sporting groups and teams. But the rule is do not sleep, do not start relationships with the camp guests. And that's not been a problem for Indy. For 10 years, she's kept that rule until the best halfback in the league of NRL comes to town, and that's Carter Hendricks. And he's come with his own, he's on the outs with his team, with his sponsors, with his fans. Everyone blames him for losing the grand final. And he's just there to focus on his football and be the best halfback, or continue being the best halfback that he can be until he sees Indy.
Perfect. Good pitch.
And spoiler alert, he was not responsible for the grand final being lost, but people will have to read to find out why people in his team think he was. So I have a question before we go into character development in general. I have a question about why NRL, because obviously in Australia we have a few codes to choose from, and this could be a controversial choice for some people. So why NRL, Renae?
Look, I don't watch AFL. There are so many books around AFL and sports romance, Aussie based ones that have AFL in them, or even kind of those crossover genres. I know Claire, I can't think of her last name, in Love Match wrote about an AFL.
Claire Fletcher.
Yes, Claire Fletcher wrote about an AFL team in a rural setting. There's actually very limited books around NRL. So when I went NRL,
I know, as being on a committee with Renae, and there's chat in that committee, and there's someone else is into NRL too. I know you're a diehard NRL fan, right?
Absolutely. It was the code that I grew up watching.
Yeah. So therefore, Renae, I have to ask you, who's your team if you're a diehard fan?
And I feel like I need to defend myself over this, because I've been a diehard fan of this team since before I was 18. For my 18th birthday.
Is it Manly? Is that what you're going to say?
No, it's Penrith Panthers.
Everyone's like, as if I know what that means.
Well, because the reason why I said Manly is because I listened to Roy and HG on ABC. Well, I actually listened to the podcast because I don't get to listen to it live. I'm sure most Australians of a certain age know Rampaging Roy Slavin and HG Nelson. And so they cover the league on Bludging on the Blind Side, and they have been banging on for years about how everyone hates Manly. Now, I don't even know if it was true, but I think it's possibly become true because they keep saying it over and over.
Yeah, self-expressing. But Renae, you live in Queensland, and I do know that Penrith is in New South Wales. So
yes,
how's that work?
I was born in New South Wales, so I'm a die-hard Blues supporter, even though we lost this year. And I've had to say that at all my library events. Yes, Queensland, well done, you've won this year. So no, and Penrith to me was the closest NRL team to Wagga, so that's why I picked them. I also really love the Panther imagery. They wear bright. Yes, Yes, you were there recently.
I was there. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. Anyway, sorry. Everyone's
Yeah,
like,
no.
is this a writing podcast or an NRL?
It
And
all goes to the
W?
writing because I think we're hearing a bit about the background to Renae creating the story, all that kind of stuff. So
And I strongly believe you have to be passionate about the things that you're writing about or be interested in finding out about them. And clearly you're very passionate about NRL. So that would have helped the enjoyment of writing about it. Yeah.
but also I'm going to ask Renae if she's heard the Dennis Carnahan song about state of origin, because you're talking about being born in New South Wales, living in Queensland. There's a song where that addresses, if it's several years old now, it addresses the fact that state of origin seems to have some fairly flexible rules, because it will be say things like, where is Fiji? That's in Queensland. Where is where is Penrith? That's in Queensland. So it's basically it covers the fact that the Queensland state of origin team
Is
seems to
everywhere.
be quite happy to take people from all sorts of places.
Yeah. Well, originally it started out as where the players were born, and then it shifted to their first club, their first one level of football club, and where that was based. So like people like I think it was. I was actually small world. I was talking to Greg Inglis's aunt, and she was saying he plays for Queensland. I'm sure it was Greg Inglis now that I've said that. But he was born in New South Wales, so it's like, very
I think
interesting.
I think that particular rule has very much benefited the Maroons, the first club rule, because then they have bringing all these people. Rachel's sitting there going, I do not know what you're talking about, and I don't particularly care. But it's germane to Second Chance Station, Rach, because
I just feel that I have nothing to add because I literally don't know. So I'm just happy listening to you guys talk about it.
But I actually really, I am not an NRL follower. Tennis is my sport,
but you're also a bit more into, like, I think you have a more finger on the pulse of sport in general.
Thanks to Roy and HG, actually. I just listen to Roy and HG every week to get all my sporting news. So that it was through that filter that I actually really enjoyed the NRL aspects of Second Chance Station, because I felt that Renae captured like the club culture and the somewhat tricky nature of it when it comes to certain behaviors, shall we say. Yeah.
And that was something that came in the book. That was that magic, because when I started writing it, I didn't actually know why Carter was on the outs with his team, and that whole storyline really just came really organically as I was writing it.
So you're not a plotter?
To a degree, I would call myself. I think I'm right in the middle. I think
that's true. We're all somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, I like to know the main beats of the story, how it starts, generally how it ends, especially the romance, because it is a rural romance. So if I can get that romance kind of plotted out, the other kind of individual story arcs kind of come more naturally as I'm starting to write it. And it was
characters and things.
Yeah. And Carter's really, really happened like that. But it was also really inspired by there was a player for the Penrith Panthers last year. He got charged with committing domestic violence against his wife. He got charged with stalking, intimidation, and violence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the NRL dropped him immediately. As soon as he was charged with that, he wasn't allowed to play. More recently, he's come back to the NRL because the charges were dropped. We've got to be really careful. Our NRL boys, our AFL boys, they're there for the whole world to see. And that means when they don't do the wrong thing, they're still there for the whole world to see. But it's about, how do we actually respond to that? How do we hold them accountable? How does the team hold them accountable? And that's something I've really enjoyed exploring.
I think there is more discussion now around certainly the behavior of high-profile players, or even low-profile players for that matter, and some examination of how the culture of the sport and the clubs themselves might be fostering certain behaviors, or not necessarily condoning, but overlooking, shall we say.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just thinking with this discussion, it just, one of my bugbears often with people about when they're talking about romance and rural romance is they just think, oh, it's light and fluffy, easy entertainment, but I think what your book really shows, and I think a lot of rural romance and romance books, and hopefully, to an extent my own, shows that you can really explore and shine a light on some really important topics. And I want to know, like, obviously you are a social worker by day, and is it like when you started writing, and each book you write, how important how important is it for you to actually, tackle an issue kind of thing and shine a light on the problems in our society? Or does that kind of just come organically because it's so much a part of your own sort of personality and passion
Mm.
life?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rach. And like, absolutely, when I first started writing, it wasn't really to put these issues in. It was just literally for my own mental health and my own self-care. But they started coming into my
I'm
stories.
going to go back to that because I had a question about that. Anyway, keep
Yeah.
going.
And when Red Dirt Home came out, because that was the first book that got printed for me, I had my ebooks, and then that book was the first one that went to print. And the head of publishing at HQ actually said to me when she read it, it was the social work voice that came out that was so strong that that's really what pushed them to send it into print and to change the imprint from Escape to HQ. And
Yeah.
and just hearing that, because, as an aspiring author or an emerging author, you always get told it's your voice, it's the voice, it's the voice. And it's like, what is the voice? What is my
It is. It's
voice?
so true. It's hard to describe that,
Yeah.
isn't it? You're like,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. So when she said that, it actually gave me that foothold to go, this is my voice. This is what I want to say. And start being more conscious about how I'm saying things like,
Love that. Yeah.
those social issues, because I do want people to read them. And I do, I don't just write these books for people who have experienced that trauma. It's for the people around them who
Yes.
haven't experienced that trauma and might not know how to talk about it or what people need in that moment. Yeah. So I'd say it's not what started me, but it's definitely what has got me motivated and, continues to push me along this journey.
I love
Yeah,
that.
because I think we can presume that traumatic family dynamics happen to people over there, but you are one degree of connection away at any time from a family that's in distress, and it doesn't necessarily take much to tip a family structure into distress, depending on what's going on. You can have a parent die suddenly, you can have a job lost suddenly, and income is not there. There are all sorts of factors that can happen very quickly to families, which mean that you think you're in this bubble of everything humming along nicely, and then everything's shattered, and suddenly that family is in distress, and everyone needs help. So it's not over there, and I think that's bringing it into fiction to make those characters so approachable and relatable the way you have does make us feel like that story is right here with me.
Yeah, and I think COVID really showed us that as well. The families that we were working with as, social workers were seeing and really engaging with were probably more that lower socioeconomic kind of area. But COVID, it brought everyone down. There was a lot more mental health. There was a lot more people struggling financially. Homelessness became a real issue, especially up here in Queensland. And it kind of leveled that playing field a little bit, in that, it wasn't just people who were really down on their luck. It was everyone, and everyone was feeling the impact of it, and everyone needed help. And it's not, you're not always having a good day when you reach out to a social worker. Something's gone wrong. And the things that go wrong, you might be able to go, well, that's in that box and that's in that box. But the way people react and the way that they're impacted by what has gone wrong, that is where all of those shades of grey come in, because there's no right or wrong way to be affected or impacted by trauma.
Yeah. That leads to, as there might be more and ask it, Sophie, but you said a few moments ago that you started writing, or just correct me if I'm wrong, but for your mental health and self-care, right? And I imagine doing the work that you do need to really take care of yourself, because you're constantly seeing traumatic situations and people suffering, and that would be very hard. Other people can switch off, like you often hear when people say, oh, I'm not going to watch the news anymore, I'm not going to scroll social media because it's too depressing, blah blah, I'm just going to stay. But you can't switch off when that's your job, right? And you're constantly seeing people in really horrible situations. So did you start writing kind of, I always say when I tell my writing story that I kind of have seen two types of authors out there. And one is someone, and maybe, and there's a combination possibly, because, but was going to say, there's a spectrum. But what I was going to say is I started writing, never had any inclination to write a book or anything before, but I started writing as a form of therapy, really. I didn't realize it at the time. And it wasn't really that dark and traumatic. It was just, I was 17 and accidentally dumped my high school sweetheart and I was heartbroken. But, at the time it felt very traumatic and life threatening, in terms of I thought my life was over. But so I started writing because of that, and it did sort of help me through those initial issues. Now I don't write now to deal with trauma or as therapy, but it's what sort of sparked me. The other writers I kind of see are people who've said they've always wanted to write a novel, like as long as they can remember, since they can. So, like, where do you fall? And you said that you used writing. I think you've sort of mentioned it that it is sort of for mental health and self-care initially. So, can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, yeah, I wasn't one of those people who always wanted to write a book. I always read. I was the kid under the covers with the torch. I
Yeah.
always read. The best thing my dad ever said to me was, "Can you at least read outside?"
I love that.
Yeah, so I was always a reader, but to me, being an author, like, that wasn't even on my radar. It was much more achievable to go and be a rock star or a country music singer or something like that.
Yeah.
Not that
Well,
that
I went to
happened
read the
either.
news at Channel 7. I thought that was more, what we've said before on this. It's not,
Yeah.
because the newsreader's still doing it. That was doing it when I wanted to do it. So.
Yeah, so it wasn't on my radar. It was when I gave birth to my second child and I fell into postnatal anxiety. And I was doing a lot of reading at that time outside. So I would sit outside, I'd have my read at my feet and my baby propped up on my chest reading. And I'd read this one book and I'd loved it. I'd loved the romance thread in it. And I'd loved the hero. He was just, the quintessential farmer, great guy, cheeky, but a hard worker and a lot of fun and easy to love. And I was stoked to find that this author had written a sequel. But in that sequel, she had turned this hero into this horrible.
I know who you're talking about. And it's so funny because we mentioned her at the beginning of this podcast. In our intro. But I'm going to out you there, right? Like, that's Rachael Treasure, and she talks about that too, right?
Yeah.
That's the one. There's not two.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's the one. Yeah.
So it's Jillaroo, which she wrote first, and never as a rural romance. Like,
No,
we actually should get Rachael on to talk about this whole thing, because I have spoken to her about it before, and it would be interesting. So I'm not going to say too much more, but I know a lot of people had problems with that next book because she did wrote sort of someone who was so heroic and then turned him, not.
She was reflecting things that were happening in her life at the time.
So let us know how. Keep going on the story. But I just want to say that actually would be interesting. Sophie, write that down, because I'd like to talk to Rachael about that specifically.
That would be so funny. That's so funny. Yes, I read the sequel and I was just heartbroken. And I think because I had already been in a state of anxiety and out of control, like, you can't when you're in that state, like, you just want to be able to control how you feel to things.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that. Yeah, and to be so out of control already, and then to read that book and just be heartbroken, it just made me go, you know what? Right now, what I need in my life is control, and I need to control an ending. That means I need to write a book and control that ending. And if it takes me my whole maternity leave, that is what I'm going to do. And I did it. And actually, by the time I went back to the office, I had 4 really, really, really badly written manuscripts.
But 4, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So in that maternity leave time, you wrote 4.
Yeah, that, like, please no, they were terrible. Like,
no,
I
but
didn't
it
know
doesn't matter. You actually
inside.
dedicated that time. And so many people do write in their thing, but I want to say something now that Sophie said again at the beginning, and I was often saying, and this is in our intro, I think, before, but is it the hustle word, Sophie? Like,
Renae, the hustle is real, is what I said.
Yeah, like, you had little kids, and I wrote through little kids and stuff too, or whatever. But we are about the bluntness sometimes here on Dear Rach and Soph, and you hear so many people like, oh, I just don't have the time, or this manuscript, like, they didn't understand it or whatever. You just worked and you kept at it and you did it. So
I found a release, like, and that's how I got on top of that postnatal anxiety. That's how I did it. I found a release. You know, we had a bit of bad luck. My husband ended up working away on and off in those early days of my second child's, you know, life. So I had, you know, that on top of it as well, and that was my release. That's just what I needed. And I was, you know, that saying around, I wish now I could write like I did then, you know, write like you don't know what you're doing, because you don't know what you're doing, so you don't care what comes out on the page. Now I'm a little bit more
totally
in tune with it. But yeah, so yeah, and then when I went back to work, it was something that I couldn't give up, because I knew that was my release. You know, I tried being a gym person, I tried the walking, and I, you know, for self-care, and I tried the journaling, and I tried so many different things that I just felt weren't me. And then to find writing as that form of self-care, and that form where, you know, you can face whatever you face during the day. And a lot of the times, you know, I can advise people what to do. I can say, you've got these options, these are the supports that, you know, I can get for you, blah, blah, blah. But I can't force them to do anything, and I can't control their choices. And to be able to come home and write and control that to a degree, characters don't always let you, but to control it to a degree. It was really therapeutic.
I think also this is, you know, there's a lot of talk, particularly on the TikToks, about manifestation and things. It's quite big at the moment, but there is a lot to also of research and books around about thoughts and reality and things like that, and how, because your thinking is essentially what you're feeling, therefore it is real. And I think you've just demonstrated by that idea that you needed control. You created it in a fictional realm, and that actually became real in your life. Because you felt different in writing those worlds that you could control. You felt more in control, and then that actually changed your reality. So I think that's actually an incredibly powerful thing, because a lot of us wouldn't consider creativity as a form of self-care in that way, in that, like, it helps you change your perspective on the world, because you're feeling different about things, because you're making up this story or whatever it is. It could be a song, it could be a painting, whatever it is. That's really amazing. Thanks for sharing that, Renae.
No, absolutely. And I think if I can share that with people and people hear it, then, you know, they're going to feel less alone, because a lot of people go through postnatal anxiety, postnatal depression, you know, and just without having the baby, the anxiety and depression. So, I just think it's important to share that, you know, you can go through things. And this is probably why I write about trauma. You can go through things and you can still find a happy ending.
Now that leads to a really good question that I've just written here. In terms of, Renae and I are on a committee together, and I think it was the last time we were in person for our in-person meeting, you shared a TED talk about, you know, your why kind of thing. Like, what was that? Can you remind me what was that?
It's discovering your why. And for me, you know, at work, that's very different. Why do I do what I do? Because there are a heck of a lot of easier jobs out there. So that's something that I work with, you know, I guess, new social workers. You know, why do you do what you do? Why do you want to come and do this job?
I bought this book after you. I bought this
Simon
book.
Sinek, you bought the book.
Start with Why, and I've got it here next to me, because I really want to read it for a couple of reasons to do with writing, and a talk that I need to do soon. But I want to know if your why's changed, basically, in your writing. And I think what's really important too is a lot of people we talk to, you know, I've said it before. Why do you want this? Like, because this is when we do writer therapy, you know, they say, why do you want to write? Like, why? And often the reason is, you know, I don't think this is where, like, it's not deep enough. Like, it's just, oh, but I want to be published, or I think it's, you know, and that why I feel like just saying I want to write a book, or, you know, I want to see my book on a shelf, it doesn't feel, I don't think this is very big. I'm making assumptions, but I don't feel like that's going to carry you.
It can't sustain you. That's too shallow.
Where, so your why needs to be a lot deeper than that. And obviously your why to start, you've explained it reasonably well. And like, I would love to know if your why has changed, or if you still come back to that, why you write.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love Simon Sinek's Why. And it's really about, you know, he puts it in a business sense and he relates it to a lot of business things, but the whole premise of it, you can relate to anything. You can relate
Yeah.
it to life, personal, professional, writing, you know, hobbies, family, whatever. You can just, it goes so far. But you're absolutely right. You have to know your why, and your why needs to be for a sustainable reason. Otherwise, you're
Yeah.
going to get that first win, you know, that oh, I've got a book published. Fantastic. What's next? Whereas your why, it does, it's like the wheels that keep you moving along the journey. And it has changed for me. So originally my why for writing was for me, for that self-care.
Yeah.
And once I started submitting to publishers, that why changed, and that why became, this is the story that I want to share because I want this to reach that person who needs it. And that probably came hand in hand with finding my voice as a writer and finding that social work voice that comes out through my books and the grittiness of my characters, because I want whoever needs to read that book to pick it up and read it. And that's my why, and that's a why that's going to carry me all the way, hopefully, into a very long writing career.
I'm almost crying hearing that. Like, and I don't cry. I don't cry easily. Like, I just think it's so, I love hearing people talk about exactly why, and it's different. I mean, your why is really special, but like, yeah, I can't even explain it. But thank you. That's amazing, and thank you for sharing that Simon Sinek why with me too, because I think it really helped me to, as you said, every aspect of your life. But I do think as writers, it's really good exercise to go, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It has to be sustainable, because otherwise you will burn out very quickly, and burn out of ideas. I think burn out of energy, burn out of motivation, because it's as I'm fond of saying, writing is blood and earth and gristle. It is not hammocks and scented candles. And if you think it's hammocks and scented candles, you will be disappointed very quickly every time you have to show up and stick with it, because there'll be times when you just think, I don't know if I have the wherewithal. But if you actually have a why that is a deep pull, as you do, Renae, then it's you're not going to empty it out by the time you finish writing that manuscript, and then you get to refill it because ideas flow in, and then you have readers who respond to you. And I'm possibly taking that metaphor too far, but you know what I mean.
No, I don't think so at all.
It's true, and I think your why doesn't. Mine's quite deep.
It is.
But your why doesn't have to be that deep. You know, that's mine, and your why can be completely. It can be whatever you want it to be, but it has to mean something to you, and it has to then, you know, be something that's tangible that can carry you. Otherwise, those wheels are going to fall off.
No, hand in hand with that, I went to Elizabeth Gilbert's creativity workshop it was called, in Sydney earlier this year, and a long-winded way she made us come to find our why, really. And I wrote something down, and I wish I know it's in there, but it was something like, when I worked it out, like I think my why, or she called it purpose, kind of thing. Was it purpose? Not purpose. There was another word that, anyway, is to provide joy and entertainment to people through books, kind of thing. And that's including myself and stuff. But also I think my why's developed. Like, I sit here and I honestly sometimes just think, you know, I'm doing my job, right? Because my why does also involve now earning a living, right? But then I remember I get, you know, beautiful emails or stuff from people who have said, you know, how much my book has just given them entertainment or joy, or made them think about something that I didn't mean to make them think about. But, you know, that's where the element of magic, I think, writing kind of comes in. And I know, like, I went to a psychic the other night for kind of for research fun purposes. We went to a psychic dinner with my friend, and I've posted a little bit about this on social on Facebook, but I've given a bit of a longer thing in my Substack, which is coming out next week and will be out by now. And she was like, you need to quit your job, basically, you know, it's not for you, and kind of thing. And I just put that on as a bit of a joke on Facebook, and then not wanting people to say yes it is, blah blah blah, but just thought it was quite funny. But then you know, the messages that people come in there, that, like, someone said, your job is not for you, right? Because that was exactly what the psychic said. Not for you, this job is not for you, right? And I had just gone and thought that the proper way, kind of thing, the literal way. And I'm like, oh well, I think it kind of is, because I really don't know what else to do, and I'm doing okay at it, you know, blah blah. And And then someone wrote on that post, no, it's not for you, it's for us.
Mm.
And I was like, wow. So yeah. Anyway, Sophie, do you have what's
Yeah, and there's
Yeah.
also there's a whole saying about I mean, depending on your belief system, that if you have a talent, it's not yours to give away. It's not yours to
Yeah.
give up on your talent. Like that's God given. And so again,
Mhm.
it depends on your belief system,
Yeah,
source,
yeah.
God. It's
What?
God given. It's not yours to throw away.
Yeah. What's your why, Sophie?
Yeah.
I think, look, not unlike yours, Rach, because I always say I write meaningful entertainment, and
Yeah, I love that.
entertainment is
Mm.
the primary motivation for me because
We need it.
we all need it. It's fundamental to being human. Actually, we need
100%.
entertainment. I think my deeper pool of meaning would be that, as I've mentioned before, it's being yoga.
Yeah.
Is what it is for me. Like, and everything that encompasses, and that would be a whole podcast episode in itself to talk about my belief systems and how they. But I've been practicing for decades now, and this is who I am. And everything I do in the world is a function of being yoga. So writing novels therefore is an extension of that, or an expression of that, and it's and I wouldn't be writing if it weren't for my practice. But it's that idea of if I'm being yoga and if I'm teaching it, that's about giving people an experience that leaves them better than they were when they walked into the class in the first place. The practice should always feel like that you're better at the end than you were at the start. And it's also about just
That's the same in
sustaining
novels, right?
Sorry, what was that?
The characters in novels should be better at the end
Yeah,
than
then also
that.
it's sustaining the whole enterprise of being human. And I think
Mm.
that's part of the deeper work of it. And yes, some people who don't think that the sorts of fiction we all write are valid because
Yeah.
for ladies, liking ladies things, it's like, well,
And because there's a bit of love in it sometimes.
I love it, but
Yeah.
storytelling is fundamental to humanity. Every human system on the planet throughout millennia has had storytelling. So what we're doing is quite ancient. It's just in a contemporary form. A print book is a very contemporary form still of
Yeah.
the sweep of human history. So I do think, and that's not to make it grandiose, because I think it's both grandiose and mundane to do.
Yeah, yeah. And basically the why is that we're all just insane. To put ourselves through this time and time.
to engage in make-up worlds, or like for sure. Like, and I now
Yeah.
really talk about how characters, just want their stories told. Like,
Yeah.
if you step from the outside and look at that, it's like, well, perhaps that's a little bit touch to say
Yeah.
that characters come in and visit. But I think, Renae, for you, the whole process you talked about with putting those stories to your publisher, and it was the one that actually you did not have developed, that was the lightning strike that they went, okay, well, that's there. But it was obviously sitting there ready to be told because you wrote it really quickly, and it's a really cohesive narrative. It's not like now that
Yeah,
you've
we were
told me that,
both
I'm
shocked
thinking,
and we're like, you wrote that, what, hang on.
yeah.
You didn't have this idea when you talked to us last time, and now
Yeah,
we've
that's right. Like, she did it. That's the thing.
and it's really good. Yeah, like, but I also think that, yeah, so congratulations. It's
Oh, thank you. And I think, I do believe in that. There's stories that need to be told, and they get told when they need to be told.
100%.
And that was definitely, I think, the story of this one. The other part of it, which probably, going into that craft element, is I'm really lucky that my publisher at HQ, she saw my very, very, very first terrible submission. And so she has kind of watched me grow in my
as an
writing. Yeah. And she keeps saying to me, it's the new stuff. Like, we see your growth, we just want to keep moving forward and new stuff. So that was part of it as well, which I was kind of like, yeah, new stuff. Not when I've got all of these other ones all ready to go. But no, I'm super grateful that she picked that one, and that the magic just came together and it turned into the story that it did. Because I'm really proud of this story. There's so much in it that people are already reaching out and saying, thanks for writing this. This is what I loved about it. Couldn't sleep until 4 a.m. when I'd finished it. I just love those.
Compliment, isn't it?
Yeah, I just love it.
I'm
Absolutely
always
love
impressed too, because I can never stop. Like, even if I want to keep reading, I'm just like, there's no way I can stay up to that long.
Oh,
Well,
she then told me that she was retired, so it didn't matter that she stayed up that late. So,
but still, that she did. I mean, like it's always such a good big compliment, I think, when people say that.
Absolutely.
But we've spoken for a long time. So, have you got anything else we should?
Not really. I think
Renae?
Renae's given all of us a lot to think about and also appreciate, and it's also part of part of your writing, Renae, is I think exemplifies the magic element in that it's nothing technical we can ever point to in anyone's books, really. I mean, I suppose if you went to a university course, whatever, they can take it apart, but there's just something like reading Second Chance Station is like there's just something in here that's really special, and I think it comes from the intention of
Yeah.
it comes from you, Renae, and it's that kind of that all that amalgamation of everything you feel, everything you know, all of your intentions, and it's in how the characters are written, it's just in how the world is created. But it's not like I could say to you, oh well, how did you go away and construct the whole idea of Windell Station and Nova and all of that? It's actually just come out of your intention to tell that story. But it is, yeah, it's one of those books that I was thinking about a lot while I was reading it. I'm still thinking about it now. It's over. I can't say, oh, it's this one thing or it's these
Yeah.
five
But I
things.
love
It's
that
the whole
because
world.
sometimes you feel like a book is almost paint by numbers. Like I'm like, and you can just deconstruct, and I don't want to be able to deconstruct. I want to just be taken on the journey like Renee took us,
Yeah. So yeah, it's lovely. Congratulations.
Well, I think, look, a lot of what I've experienced through my day job, a lot of it comes out, it bleeds into the pages,
Yeah.
even when I don't realize that I'm doing it, and it's, this one, Second Chance Station, Red Dirt Home, it really is that kind of, it's that book that's written for those people that have gone through that. It's for the people around them as well, but, like all the kids that I have
Yeah.
met and worked with in care who have been through some really horrific things and really do have that right to go, the world sucks and I'm just going to go and, get high and forget about it all.
Yeah.
Trust me, they do that too. But a lot of them, they come out the other side and they are
That's so
just
amazing.
stories of resilience and stories of strength that we don't get to see.
Yeah.
But they are there. So, it's as much for them as it is for everybody around them as well.
I love that. I'm just so glad that you're writing these amazing stories that does touch on and that is really interesting that like it's sad that we don't get to see the
Absolutely.
happy stories or the success stories.
Mm.
But I also think like to be a writer you have to have an element of empathy and to be a reader, right? And you must have it in spades because of your job. So that probably really helps.
I think also it's that theory of mind. I think authors are really good at that theory of mind, putting themselves into the shoes of a
Yes.
character and thinking around how they would respond and things that they would do. So yeah, I think all authors have that theory of mind, which is really
I think you need to, right? Because someone asked me, or actually a couple of journalists asked me with my last book, which is probably my lightest and fluffiest, actually, which was The Bad Bridesmaid. But someone asked me, how do you, as a woman who's, a middle-aged woman who's been married for over 20 years, how did you get yourself in the head of the young character who's like on dating apps and you've never been to and is constantly, like I said, that's just what being a writer is, right? Like we write characters outside our own experience. Like if I just wrote my experience, geez, no one would read it. Like it's so boring.
And I think I've said on this podcast before, Rach, that those sorts of questions really irritate me because no one tends to ask crime writers if they've been a serial killer lately or if they're in the police force. It tends to be asked of middle-aged women writing fiction for
I think
other
that we
women.
can't. Yeah, that's true. It's like you couldn't have a good enough imagination to
or surely you're only writing about yourself. I think the presumption is that you must be writing autobiographical fiction. It's like no, I have an imagination and I'm capable of using it.
Yeah.
But, and it's a compliment too, Rach, because you've done such a fantastic job. They have no idea how you did it.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Renee's taking the high road there. I took the low road. She took the high road.
I love it. Oh, thank you, Renae, so much for chatting to us. Unless either of you have anything to add, I think we better,
We'll let Renae get back to her Sunday. Yes.
Yes, I've got a Christmas in July to get to. So
fun.
yeah, that'll
be
fun.
I hope that you eat lots of great food and thank you so much for your time.
And maybe we'll talk to you again one day.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Rachel, I'm not sure if there's much to say after that because it was one of those conversations where things just flowed in a particular way that we could not have predicted, and it was so interesting.
It was such a good chat, and I think made us all think about different things. And I just I want to move that up our list, Soph. The reason I'm saying that is because if I do manage to convince you to move it up, and because we have got quite a few, in the pipeline. That means that our intro will sound weird because I said that your book was coming out next week and that it's not really coming out next week because it'll be ages after and it's already been out. But this will be perfect because it will be coming out.
Well, look, I'll have a look at our schedule and ascertain where we are. But I also think that anyone who's listened to that or watched the episode and heard Renae speaking will understand. Well, hopefully understand why her novels
Resonate.
linger in the mind, and it's
Yep.
because she's bringing all of that to the story. And yeah, I think she's a terrific writer, so I hope people go on
Same.
to Second Chance Station and perhaps her other books as well, and hopefully there'll be more from her. But
I'm
yeah,
sure there will.
I
Yeah.
really loved having a conversation with her that was not about agents, because the first time we spoke to her was really focused on that, so we didn't
Yeah.
get to talk about the writing really.
And her stuff. Yeah, no, that was really good. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who is listening or watching. And I'm going to do a pretty beg to say, can you please leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify and follow our Substack because we love having these conversations and we'd like to more people to hear them if they want.
Yeah, so the Substack is Dear Rach and Soph.substack.com, and the and is spelt out, even though we use an ampersand in the title. So Dear Rach and Soph.substack.com. Of course, you can find me and Rach on the socials. And
Yeah.
I don't think we're hard to find.
No, I don't think so either.
But yeah, we so appreciate having an audience. I think when I suggested this podcast to you a while ago, I thought, oh, let's just see what happens. The number of people who have contacted us or come up to us in person and said that they listen to the podcast and how it's actually something that they really look forward to every week is amazing. It's amazing to me.
And we do give the tough love sometimes. And, so if you're brave and want some writing therapy, shoot us an email.
Yes, send us a DM. Just as I said, we're not hard to find.
No.
But Rach, I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Can't wait.
Bye.